Hi Sargon. First of all, I would like to say that I enjoy your videos, and I find that you do consider the facts on the topics that you discuss. However, I differ with you on some opinions. One of them is one of the key issues of our time. Yes, you guessed it, the Brexit. I do not support the decision to leave the EU personally, but this is not actually my complaint. It's happened, we're going to have to deal with it, and that's okay. I do not support the idea of plebiscite rule, however. Plebiscite rule is a form of democracy, and I'm certainly not against democracy. But direct democracy, or plebiscite rule, though it seems attractive, is riddled with problems which I will try to discuss. This is not to say that representative democracy, which is the election of politicians in political parties, is perfect. It is especially not so in a system like ours, that uses a first-past-the-post voting system and clever gerrymandering. But please hear me out. Thomas Jefferson is attributed with a quote that is rather condescending to direct democracy. He supposedly said that democracy is no more than mob rule, where 51% of the population can take away the rights of the other 49. These numbers look quite similar to the outcome of many referendums, such as the Brexit referendum and even the Scottish independence referendum. The problem here is that the country becomes divided over an issue, in which the people get very heated and polarize each other's opinions rather than actually listening or taking on each other's concerns. This can only lead to an increase in animosity between friends and brothers, and with a question like the Brexit, which has such far-reaching consequences for both outcomes, some violence is almost inevitable. Representative democracy avoids the problem of pitting brother on brother and friend on friend against each other over one single, yet terribly important, decision. If one major party declares in its manifesto to be for the EU, and the other against the EU, then a parliamentary majority for either of these parties would be enough mandate to trigger talks and to decide whether to leave or to remain in the EU. However, only 5 parties had the guts to come out and put their stance on the EU on the table. For Remain, these were the Liberal Democrats, the SNP and Sinn Féin, and for Leave, they were UKIP and the DUP. These parties, with a majority or a coalition majority together, would have had the mandate to decide on the Brexit question with no hassle. But the hassle caused, politically, by the referendum will mean that even though the Leave vote won, the democracy will not be respected until probably at least 2020. Article 50 will take, at best, 6 months to implement, possibly up to 2 years, and the talks will only be finished 2 years after that. So 2020 is the earliest that Leave voter can expect to be out of the EU. The failure of representative democracy in this case can be attributed almost entirely on the Tory party, and to a much, much lesser extent on the Labour Party. The Tory party has used a referendum to demean and sideline 2 legitimate political parties, namely UKIP and the Liberal Democrats. These parties often broadly align with the Tory party, with the major difference that they had the guts to come out and say where they stood on the EU. The Tory party, out of self-interest, did not declare its stance. The Tory party has also used this to decide on its new leader and to try and distract the public from its truly divided political core and lack of care for public services. The Tory party will become a fake champion of Brexit, as it was of Remain, and as it will be of all of its political views. The Labour Party saw its own division on the issue, and while it could not come up with a cohesive and clear rebuttal of Tory points, which is amazing, it is not to blame for the referendum or the fallout from it. David Cameron decided whether we were going to have this plebiscite. The Labour Party should be walking all over a split and divided Tory camp, but is so poor in opposition that instead of tearing the Tory party to pieces, it's self-destructing. I do not believe that in the future we should ever again have to be confronted with a plebiscite on a key constitutional matter, because the main political parties do not have the balls to put forward their view or are too divided to do so anyway. The former of these points is cowardly, and the latter shows that they are not a legitimate and cohesive party. Referendums and plebiscite rule, in tandem with a representative democracy, present a decay of our political system and mean that the parties have to shoulder no responsibility and hold split views on key issues that politicians cannot even do their job with while holding the party line. In their wisdom, they see it better to turn the public on each other to avoid scrutiny and criticism over taking a big decision and actually leading. Whether it is their party line or their personal ambition that prevents them from risking an unpopular but informed decision, politicians should not be able to relinquish the responsibility of their actions and saddle half the population with the responsibility of their mistakes and their incompetence, and the whole of the population with what sometimes may be an uninformed decision. In this case, I feel even more heartbroken in the fact that Westminster politics, which this referendum has just given more power to, has shown itself again to be completely incompetent. Whether the result was Remain or Leave, the Tory party who offered it never considered the result as important as the survival of the Tory party itself. It thinks democracy is a joke. So what do you think of this? I'd really like to hear. Thanks a lot for listening.